Yeah, you heard me right. 2012, about 12 years ago, we had CW Arrow's pilot. And I'm gonna be honest, I rewatched this and I wasn't expecting it to be amazing. I really loved The Flash and I really loved the Arrow TV show, but I don't really remember Arrow as fondly as I do The Flash. Now, that could be just flat out biased because I do love Barry Allen, I do love The Flash, but I rewatched CW Arrow's pilot and it is still amazing 12 years later, or at least something like 12 years later. Now, what happens in the pilot that makes it so amazing? Well, I want to talk about it here and now, so let's get into it. Oliver starts running through the forest, traversing through the trees and the mountains to see a ship on its way. He grabs his bow and arrows and lights one arrow and fires it off to a giant stack of branches to basically get the attention of a nearby ship. It explodes and a fire breaks out, just like a normal campfire, but about on a scale of 10x. And they're able to see the fire, and Oliver Queen can now be saved from an island known as Lian Yu. Now, this is Mandarin, known as Purgatory, and he's been stranded here for 5 years. And all he could think about the entire time was survival and then returning home. Now, this is where we're introduced into the idea that the island had tons of dangers. We even see a mask going by, very similar to your Deathstroke-like mask, but we know that it's not, one for one like a Deathstroke mask. Now, this does lead us into the idea that he made himself into something completely different, aka what we're going to know as the Green Arrow. And there's an idea, and this idea he brings up, the idea of returning to his city as a man who is about to bring justice. Now, right off the bat, I'm not gonna lie to you, this sounds a lot like someone else, being that of the Batman, but that's for a different video and a different time. I'll definitely be talking about that, about the similarities between Batman and CW's Arrow, but for now, I want to keep talking about what exactly this pilot is all about. We finally get Oliver Queen home, and we basically get a brief look into what he was like before being stranded. We see him, hanging out with a chick, warding off paparazzi, doing absolute hooligan type stuff. And then we're transitioned into him in a hospital room. He's standing there on his own with nobody there. He's just staring outside of a window. And you can't imagine the type of things that are running through this man's head. I mean, he's been tortured, brutalized, had to kill to survive. He's been stranded for so long, and it seems like his mother and the doctor are talking about his scars in the hospital room, and the doctor even says he may not be the same Oliver he once was. And I love this. I love this start because at the end of the day, that's the truth of it. This Oliver that we have gotten, the one that we now know, there's no way he would be the same. Like, there's no chance. And I'm glad this was brought up almost immediately because there are layers to the idea of him being stranded on that island, stranded on his own. And frankly, he may be happy that he is home, happy to see his family, happy to see his sister, happy to see his mother, all that. But still, he has some mental and physical trauma, and I'm glad they don't just skip on past this. They really make it an emphasis, like a massive emphasis. And I'll even get into why they make it an emphasis later on in this breakdown. Now, the doctor, like I said, says that he may not be the same, and Oliver and his mother have a reunion, and the reunion's pretty good. Like, it seems as if Oliver knows who his mom is happy to see her, they hug, they embrace, and then finally we have Oliver back home. Yes, back home. And he meets, actually, his maid that he is extremely fond of, and it seems like they have a very, very good relationship, and I want to talk about that relationship a little bit later, but it seems as well he's not too fond of someone else by the name of Walter, and it seems as if he knows something is definitely going on. But of course, he does meet his sister as well, and she is happy that he is alive, and she even says that she knew he was alive, like she knew it, because he had to be, right? And maybe that's a coping mechanism, and probably really was a coping mechanism. But then we are transitioned to the first look of Laurel Lance, what is or who is supposed to be the comic accurate Oliver love interest. I mean, we all know that normally Black Canary, Laurel Lance, or Diana Laurel Lance is the love interest of the Green Arrow or Oliver Queen. But obviously we're starting with a bit of a rocky start because, well, in the background you can hear the news story of Oliver Queen surviving, but he was the only survivor, and the sister of Laurel Lance, Sarah Lance, is dead, and she immediately will turn off the TV because it's obvious that there is major drama being set up, that she is extremely angry at Oliver, and also extremely sad that Sarah basically fell for Oliver and it led to her dying. Now, spoiler alert, we all know that she's not actually dead at this point. She's actually alive, but yes, at this point in time, they did believe that she was dead, setting up a massive drama plot line, which I'm not against at all. I mean, normally I would say, like, you know, the CW drama is not the best, so on and so forth, but this is kind of perfect. We're talking about how Laurel Lance, or Laurel, the main love interest for Oliver Queen, is absolutely pissed at him, and I'll even talk about that a little later when they actually end up catching up, but she's absolutely pissed. Her sister died because she was cheating, or what, because Oliver was cheating on her with her sister, and it's a horrible thing, and it's all leads to Oliver Queen being kind of a shit person, and we know that's what he was before he left and got stranded on the island. But let's then go into the idea of how we can tell Oliver is so different, because at the end of the day, throughout this entire conversation, throughout the flashbacks and all of this, we can see literally that Oliver is completely different around his family, around everybody, because we even get a flashback of the Queen's Gambit with him and Sarah, and you can tell, I mean, he's an absolute hooligan, that he doesn't care, that he's screwing around with his girlfriend's sister, and it's all good. I mean, even though, like, his father tells him, like, that relationship is not going to end well. And we finally do get an introduction into Tommy Merlin, which is his best friend, and they do catch up a little bit. You know, you get the whole talk about, oh yeah, you know, Super Bowl winners and stuff like that. But then the table gets very, very awkward because Oliver immediately shuts down Walter, talking about how he didn't realize that Walter wanted to sleep with his mother. And everybody is shocked and all of these things. And we got to understand, this is a 5-year gap. I mean, Oliver may be upset, but his mother has every right to, you know, go on with her life and stuff like that. I mean, they really did believe that his father was dead. And frankly enough, his father was one of the first people to die during this shipwreck. So there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah, you're allowed to move on. But of course, in the eyes of Oliver, he's like, well, I didn't know you were just going to step in on my mother to, like, you know, date my mother after, or marry my mother, or marry his mother, right, after his father passed away. Like, it looked really bad at the end of the day. So Oliver asks to be excused from the table, and I just love the idea, and this is one big thing I love about this episode, is that we continue to get these small glimpses into everything he gained while stranded and forced to survive, right? We see that, like, normally you get this whole like, oh, he's weak, he's stranded and stuff. I mean, when the boat sinks and they're forced onto the raft, I mean, he looks like a weak person. And I know I don't mean that in a bad way or anything, because all of us would look weak and horrible when in a situation of life or death. But we're talking now about an Oliver that was able to analyze a situation, analyze the area around him, the people around him, deduce that his mother was now married to Walter. And then on top of that, we even see something even crazier when he's having a nightmare about when the boat sunk and was forced on the life raft. He sees that past in a bad dream for the most part, and then he's awoken by his mother, and he immediately flips her over and puts his hand to her neck like he's going to kill her. That just shows another layer of what happened to him on that island. And it's a scary thing, because it's obvious that he's still dealing with tons of trauma, even though he puts on that really strong face, but he still is dealing with a ton of the trauma. But she does remind him that he is home, but it does show, like I said, the layer to what happened to him and what he learned. Basically, it shows what he learned to the audience, but also his family within the show, right? Now his mother, now to an extent, understands, like, wow, he did go through quite a bit. Like, that's pretty freaking crazy how much he just went through. Now, we do have some simple moments. We have a gift from him to his sister with a hosen that basically symbolizes reconnection. We have him go back in the streets with Tommy. He talks about the one thing he misses, and that would be Laurel Lance. But of course, Tommy would say, like, that's the one person that really hates you right now. Like, you shouldn't be going over there talking to her. But we know Oliver's gonna do Oliver things, so they meet with Laurel. And let's just say the words that she has to say, the words are not very nice, because Oliver tries to apologize for getting Sarah killed, but Laurel basically says that she wishes that, for one, that he stayed dead, but also that he should have rotted in hell of a lot longer than 5 years. Which, I mean, I wouldn't say it's valid to say it, but I wouldn't say it's not valid to say something like that to him, because we are talking about Oliver Queen, who really did some horrible stuff. I mean, he straight up seduced her sister, and then her sister died. I mean, who else do you blame in that scenario, right? I mean, obviously, logically, we could be like, well, everyone makes their own choices and stuff like that, like, you know. But still, as a grieving sister, and as someone that, and she even references that she wasn't really able to grieve because her sister was doing such a horrible thing as well. She understands now that all she did was fall under a spell. All she did was fall under the spell that she fell under a long time ago. And it's a pretty deep thing and a deep cut. But this is where we lead into probably one of the cooler things in this episode, I truly believe, because this is the first time we truly see Oliver in action. He gets kidnapped by some people in some, you know, creepy red masks. We get a little flashback to the raft with his father. His father saying, like, he failed the city and he didn't help the city. And this is kind of hinting at the idea that these robbers, they're not here for a queen's ransom, quote unquote. They're not here to take money. What they're here for is because his father knows some things. And frankly, they want to know if Oliver knows what his father said, aka did the father ever spill secrets to Oliver before he died, right? Now, this would lead to Oliver getting tortured just for a little bit, but we all know vintage, or you could call it a really certified moment for Oliver with having not handcuffs but zip ties on his wrists. We then literally see Oliver with zip ties behind his back. He breaks them off, and he continues to get tased, threatened, but he breaks them off, and we see what the green arrow, or the arrow, is going to be truly capable of, because he begins to hunt these criminals like an absolute apex predator. Yes, like a freaking lion hunting down his prey. No guns, no weapons, just hands. And he murks these people, like murders these people. It is honestly terrifying. It seems as if Oliver is like animalistic almost. Like, he is absolutely terrifying. The way he's running, the way he's chasing these people, stalking and like getting to them, and even the way he kills one of them. He kills one by getting him in a pseudo headlock, but kind of from behind, not a reverse like a rear naked choke, but he has his neck under his arm like he's doing a reverse guillotine in a way, with the other guy facing the opposite direction. And he has him by the neck, and he basically says, like, yeah, nobody can know what I can do, and he just snaps his neck. It's brutal, man. It is freaking brutal. And it just shows even more layers of what happened to Oliver. He's now like treating the city that he once lived in like the island that was treated like purgatory. The island that was deemed purgatory for him, he's now treating it, or treating his city just like it. And it is crazy how much is going on. And then, of course, we get a flash forward to him being with Tommy Merlin and also his family, and Detective Lance is questioning the story that he's talking about. Something about a guy in a green hood swooping down, killing 3 men and saving them, and the detective is really pressing Oliver. And this is where you can see that this isn't necessarily a place this isn't suspicion, a place of suspicion. It's more of a place of hatred against Oliver, because this is Detective Lance, and if you're not paying attention, I'll break it down for you. This is the father of Sarah Lance and Laurel Lance. So we're talking about someone who had their daughter killed in the act of the Queen's Gambit sinking. So he's not treating Oliver like the victim, right? We know that Oliver technically is not the victim. Like, he straight up killed those people, but obviously Detective Lance has no idea, like, at all. So the fact that he's pressing Oliver, who's supposed to be the victim, and placing the suspicion on him out of a place of hatred is kind of a messed up thing. I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty messed up thing. And he continues to do that until he's basically told to leave by his mother and Walter, because it's obvious that they're not getting anywhere with this other than the idea that someone with a green hood swooped in, right? We get some alone time from Oliver very soon, and I believe her name is Graza. I'm not exactly sure how he was pronouncing the name, but he basically talks to her, and it's honestly kind of emotional with like how she talks. It seems like she really did raise him like her own. And I know we don't really see much of it, but she does talk like, oh, like, I always knew you were a good boy. Like, you're still a good boy. Like, I don't ever remember you reading back then, right? Blah, blah, blah. And she basically says like that he really didn't change that much, that he's still a good boy. And Oliver would say like he appreciates that she always saw the best in him and always thought like he would do better, do good things, and so on. And it's honestly kind of emotional because it does show you that Oliver was, yes, raised in a place of privilege in terms of, you know, money and stuff like that, but it's obvious that he didn't have a crazy, like, solid relationship with his parents. And it's obvious that Graza, I believe, or Graza or something like that, was more or less the mother figure, right? Taking care of him, being the maid for him, but also being kind of like the mother for him as well. So that's kind of like another layer that I don't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe this really gets expanded on that much, but it's an interesting tidbit that I would definitely take into account for this pilot, and it's a very interesting part about it. And let's stray away from that a little bit, because this is where we do meet Diggle for the first time. And of course, this is where we see the very, very well-renowned tuck and roll out of a car by Mr. Oliver Queen, escaping Diggle, doing, you know, his disappearing act, you could even say. And this is where he would go off and basically go to his father's old industrial factory. And this would be the home base for the Arrow kind of sanctuary, cave, quiver, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Just the Arrow home base. That's what it's going to be, the Green Arrow home base. And this is where we even see him do some training sessions. We see him show off his bow skills. And it's kind of like your typical kind of compilation of different things, from training, the salmon ladder, to the bow skills, pinning tennis balls to the wall with your bow, and then eventually you see him looking at a list of people that he has on, basically a list of people that he believes that he either needs to stop or kill, starting with the one and only Adam Hunt. Yeah, Adam Hunt. So this is where we normally would start, and Adam Hunt is a pretty big part of this episode in terms of we actually hear quite a few hints about him from Laurel, from Oliver, and he's kind of like the main focus. And it really is a perfect showing of what the Green Arrow or the Hood is going to be, right? Because Oliver, or Green Arrow, he would basically find Adam Hunt, take out his guards, and then tell him that he needs to send 40 million to this specific bank account, and if he doesn't, he will be seeing him at 10 p.m. very, very soon, and he's going to do it by force. And Adam Hunt would confirm all of this, would confirm the idea of the hood, the idea of everything to the police. And let's just say Adam Hunt's not going to be giving over the money, so he's going to be dealing with some pretty bad business very, very, very soon. Now, of course, this does lead to Diggle being back. Hey, welcome back, Diggle. Gotta love Diggle. I absolutely love Diggle, by the way. In this episode, and also just for the future of Arrow, Diggle's such an awesome character, and it's so funny. It's like he's comic relief, but not comic relief at the same time, and at least in this episode, that's kind of how he's played off, because Diggle is basically just watching Oliver like a freaking hawk. And Oliver is basically just being his old self for a little bit, partying, stuff like that. And while he's partying, showing a face and showing off around everybody, Adam Hunt is currently preparing for the attack from the man in the hood. And Diggle is still watching Oliver like a hawk, just watching him over and over and over again. And Oliver, well, let's just say he then shows up and he wants to protect his younger sister, right? 17-year-old little sister. And the whole point of, and the whole reason why he's trying to protect her is because, well, she's trying to do some drugs or other stuff like that a 17-year-old could possibly do. And she rants about how he can't judge, and like he was dead when all these things were happening, and that you can't judge because you were just like me when I was this young. And I'm gonna be honest, this is where things are keep getting deeper and deeper, because yes, this is a show about the Arrow, but I love that they really are setting up these characters in a beautiful way, right? We have this perspective, right, for her as a 17-year-old who was 12, right, when her brother went off and never came back, and they all thought he was dead. So she's using him as an example in terms of just what person she's going to be in terms of doing drugs or being a party girl or something like that, and saying, you can't judge me, right? Now, everything is perspective, like I said, because she could have been completely different, right? I don't know about you, but if my brother was gone for 5 years, comes back and we all thought he was dead, I would take a hard look at what I'm doing as a person, and as just what's going on, a dead serious look about what's happening, because I would want to live as long as possible for my brother, right? My brother comes back and stuff like that. Like I would relish in that. Screw all this party nonsense, screw all this other stuff. All I care about is this, right? Like I just got back something that was a giant gaping hole in my life, and that's a gift, right? Now everybody looks at it differently, and I understand that 100%. Now, I might look at it as one way, but obviously, the little sister of Oliver Queen, or Speedy, looks at it a different way as well. Now, this is why I will keep saying, like, there's so many layers to what's happening, and the emotion and kind of like the drama put into this show, especially in the pilot. I mean, we even get Laurel and Oliver kind of reconciling, and it seems like Laurel was like ready to forgive him, like literally ready to forgive him. But then Oliver just self-sabotages. I mean, he says that she should stay away, that he's never going to be better, that he's just worse, and so on. And then Laurel just takes the hint. Laurel just goes away and just basically chews him out and then leaves, right? Because Oliver believes that if she falls in love with him again, like everything's going to be so much worse. Like that's truly what he believes. So he decides to cut it off with her in the only way he knows how, and that's be extremely toxic. Now, of course, Oliver does have a mission for this night, and that would be to steal the money that Adam Hunt was basically saying, oh, I'm not going to steal, blah, 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 right? Now, Oliver would then proceed to knock out Diggle, which would be an interesting play, let's just say that. and he knocks him out, or at least chokes him out, and then heads out to pay Adam Hunt a bit of a visit. He would put an arrow in the side of the building, and then he would enter, beating down all the armed guards, putting arrows in them, and so on. And then he beats the main guard, with some absolutely amazing moves, by the way. Like, it looked super epic during the time. And then he just like zip lines out of there, right? Adam Hunt thinking like, oh yeah, like he missed an arrow on me, like you were trying to kill me. Oh, he even referenced like, oh, you missed. And then then Oliver literally is like, oh yeah, I did miss, huh? And then yeah, so we basically just learn very, very soon that arrow, the one he quote unquote missed, was, yeah, perfectly placed, because he begins to sap $40 million out of Adam Hunt, forcing him to pay. And this is when we get the whole, like, a lot of these other people start getting paid. Like, random money is showing up, like 50 grand is showing up in different people's accounts, because let's just say Adam Hunt is an absolute scumbag. Like, that's what he was. He was basically stealing money from people for the most part. And I'm not 100% sure if it's like an insurance thing or something like that, but he was just a dirty person. So I'm sure some of you guys can tell me exactly what Adam Hunt did in terms of owing a bunch of money to people. But he did then send all that 40 million to various people, and of course Laurel is happy about that as well. But we basically do end with an interesting ending to this episode, because we, for one, get a flashback to Oliver's dad killing himself. So we get to see how Oliver's dad actually dies, and he also kills the other man with them and tells Oliver to survive. Now, talk about traumatizing. That is traumatizing. And I like this version of Oliver a lot. For the main reason why is because he did go through some traumatizing stuff. He did go through some horrible, horrible things. And I don't think the animated shows and stuff like that shine enough light on that idea. He's happy-go-lucky, you know, stuff like that. I mean, Oliver Queen did go through pretty much hell, and I'm glad that CW was able to portray it to a pretty damn good degree. I think most people would agree that Arrow was pretty good in terms of a show. Yes, it had its ups and downs, just like The Flash did, right? But it still was pretty damn good. Now, let's talk about the very, very ending, and that was Oliver was kidnapped by people his mom sent. So we do get the idea that his mom is not very good of a person, or not that very good of a person, just from day one, like the literal first episode. Very similar to The Flash, how we learned that Harrison Wells is truly not who he says he is. So it is a pretty interesting commonality that both Arrow and The Flash have. I mean, they are both from CW, so it makes sense that they have some commonalities. So overall, I would say I absolutely love CW Arrow's pilot, and I honestly think it's still amazing 12 years later. Now, I will say this. I want to hear what you guys have to say about the Arrow pilot, and maybe even about the whole entirety of the Arrow show. If you enjoyed the video, show some love by leaving a like, sub, and also commenting your opinions on it. And let me know if you want to see me compare and contrast CW Arrow, the pilot, to CW The Flash, the pilot. I think that might be a good video, so if you want me to do that, please let me know. But with that said, hope you all enjoyed, like I said, and if you did, show some love to the video. And if you enjoyed this video, well, YouTube believes you'll enjoy this one, so might as well go check it out.